Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name is Lisa Elvin Staltari, and I'm a genealogist and a passionate traveler. Over the last several years, I've been focusing this channel's attention on les filles du roi and les filles mariées, the king's daughters and the marriageable girls. Their stories are profoundly affecting, and I am so grateful to be able to tell their stories as I have been. I think since 2021 now, so it's been a while. We're currently on episode 276, if you can believe it. And it just keeps going. There are over 700 of them, so we've got a ways to go. Before we begin, let me show you ways you can support the channel. Subscribe, like, and notify, those three little buttons. All of that helps my logarithm so much. Then next are ways to help the channel grow. We have Patreon, which is a monthly service that you can subscribe to. And we also have Ko-fi, that is a standalone platform where you just donate. And then we also have on my PayPal, the PayPal button on my website, How Roots Will Travel, and also the Super Thanks button that's right there on the YouTube platform. So all of that helps me to continue offering these videos to you. So thank you ever so much for your support. It really means the world to me. So with that being said, let's get on with the show. Today's Fille du Roi is episode 276, Louise Bercier, and she comes to us from a viewer request. I did not have her in my files, so it was a pleasure to get to know Louise a little bit better. So Louise is born in 1649 in a commune called Auvrenat, now called Avrillé, in France. Her parents were Jean Bercier and Marie Morel. She is from the region of France known as Pays de la Loire. And inside of that, we have the département, or county, of Maine-et-Loire. And this community has existed, it's very historic, and it has existed since the 12th century, very quiet. At some points it was very rural, but now from all that I can gather, it is truly a residential, kind of a sleepy suburb, if you will. And that picture on the bottom is one of those castles that remain. That's actually from the 17th century, a little bit after Louise's time, but that is something that people go and look at in this particular community. Let's have a look at what brought Louise to New France. So we don't have any information about her parents, but what we do know is that Louise came to New France on the ship called La Nouvelle France, and she arrived in Quebec on July 3rd, 1668, and she was accompanied by her uncle Louis and her aunt Anne. Now the groom she selected and who selected her, his name was Michel Feuillon, and he was born in 1630 in a small commune called Saint-Pierre-le-Vieux in France. His parents were René Feuillon and Matrin Nicot. Now he is also, just like Louise, from the region of France known as Pays de la Loire, but he is from the département just below Maine-et-Loire, where Louise is from. He is from Vendée. You can see from the photograph on the bottom, very rural, very small community. There is some winemaking that I was able to ascertain, and it is very close to other very cultural and historic places. So it's one of those places that would be nice to visit, but you'd also have kind of a circuit. The church that he would have been baptized in is, of course, called l'Église Saint-Pierre, the Church of the Old St. Peter. So let's have a look at Michel's voyage to New France. Michel would be in New France as early as 1664. He can be found at Cap de la Madeleine, very close to Trois-Rivières, and he's listed in the 1666 census as, just so that I can read it for you, les noms des habitants volontaires non mariés ou mariés en France. So this is people who were volunteers, who came without a contract, who were working, and on those who were married, but their wives were in France. Now, Michel is listed. He's 36 years old at this point. So let's have a look at how quickly he and Louise connect. So Louise and Michel were married October 15th, 1668, at the small place called Bercier, and which is very close to Trois-Rivières. So presumably she was definitely someone, and he was ready to be married because he wouldn't have just, remember that in order to win the hand of a fille du roi, you would have needed to have something to offer. So by then, he was there for about 4 years, so he would have had time to build up his his assets, if you will. So let's go and see where they settle. So they would settle at a town called Sainte-Anne-de-la-Parade. The history of Sainte-Anne-de-la-Parade begins at approximately 1667 when Jean Talon named it or granted it to the first seigneur, Michel Gagne. Now, he would go along and recruit tenants and people who would actually farm the land. And now, eventually, Michel Gamelin would sell his shares to two men who would share the seigneurie for a time. And then eventually, Pierre Thomas Thériault de la Parade, the son of one of these two men, and hence Sainte Anne became Sainte Anne de la Parade. And here's a really interesting note. Pierre Thomas happened to be married to a Quebec heroine, Madeleine de Bercier, who at 14 years of age had defended her family and village from an Iroquois raid. And so, with her marriage, she became the seigneuress of Sainte-Anne-de-la-Parade. And she would eventually end up her days right here. This is an illustration of the land sections that were given out. So it's a really very, very, and I posted a link to this particular map so that you can have a look at it. As you enter the town, I visited there last summer and it was truly amazing. And as you enter, you see the magnificent Cathedral of Sainte-Anne-de-la-Parade. And this picture on top is the actual manor, the seigneurial museum that you can visit. It really tells a fabulous story. So please visit it if you happen to be in St. Anne, certainly during the summer. It's beautiful. I also want to give you just a little tidbit. It happens to be the world, listen to me, the world capital of Tommy cod fishing. Apparently, during Tommy cod season, generally from late December to mid-February, thousands of tourists come to St. Anne for ice fishing. And a small fishing village is built on that frozen water of the St. Anne River that bisects the town. So can you imagine? So just note to self, if you like fishing, this is the place to go in February. If you happen to be there in February and don't like fishing, you might be decided okay, what are these thousands of people doing here? So note to self. Absolutely fabulous little town. Had so many places to visit and to look at, even though it was just this really tiny little place. We went to a farmer's market and it really explored lots of things in this section of Quebec. It was really, truly remarkable. They would go on to have 5 children. Marie-Madeleine would marry Louis Baribeau and would have 7 children, 5 of whom survived and 4 who left descendants. Michel would marry Marguerite Goulet, and they would have 5 children, all of whom would make it to adulthood. Marguerite's mother was Catherine Leroux, a fille du roi who we have not yet profiled. Antoine would marry Marie-Françoise Latouche and would have 7 children, and all of whom would survive. Barbe married Jean-Baptiste Lebert, and she would have 2 children, both of whom survived. She then married Pierre Séguin and would have 6 children, all of whom made it to adulthood. Pierre's mother was Jeanne Petit, a fille du roi who we profiled in episode 72, and I'll include the link in the notes below. Marie-Louise would marry Richard Séguin, her brother-in-law, and they would have 5 children, all of whom made it to adulthood. Really, really quite remarkable. Now, 1681 census finds us with Michel and Louise and their children. We have Magdalene, Michel, Antoine, and Marie, who is 7 months at that point. I am not seeing Barbe. That's interesting. So we have 5 bêtes à cornes, which are goats or any horned animal, and they have 6 arpents à valeur, which is about 4 to 4.5 acres of land. Now, one of the things that when you see that someone isn't there, it is possible they were overlooked, okay? Or it's also possible that Marie was actually Marie Barbe, and Marie Louise is actually, so you have to kind of allow yourself to expand your analysis, if you will, when you're looking at this. Unfortunately, we do not have a death date or record for either Michel or Louise. We do know that Louise probably passed away, or presumably passed away, before Michel, and she is sometime between February of 1687, which would have made her approximately 38 years old, just tragic, or alternatively 48. I mean, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Obviously, she passed away before the age of 50, which is just very tragic. And Michel himself would have passed away. He was a little bit older than her, so he would have passed away by 1669. He was approximately 60 years old by the time he would pass away. Now, one of the things that is remarkable about this couple is the fact that they were married presumably for 20 odd years, and depending on when the actual death would have occurred, but all their children survive, and all their children produce children. So I find that remarkable. There's not one, they did not have any children that died, and all of their children went on to produce children. So that left them with descendancy. It wasn't a huge descendancy by 1729. It was only 79, but it was enough. It's not where you start, it's where you end, because the proof is in that pudding, because their descendant has requested this video. So there you have it. They have still, even in 2024, made an impact. So that is a remarkable testament. And so ends our story of Louise Bercier. She came to New France, and she did not have a long time of it. I mean, she was basically gone 20 years after she arrived, which is a very short amount of time. But we are so grateful to her, and also for being one of those early Sainte Anne de la Parade people, pioneers. So we are grateful to her and her husband for coming to New France and building a family that their line continues to this day. So we are ever so grateful for their contribution, and we bless her memory. And I also want to say thank you to my patrons, supporters, and subscribers. Thank you all so very, very much for your endless support. And every once in a while I get an email that just makes me so happy. So thank you ever so much for everything that you have contributed to this channel. So thank you ever so much. And in that, I will see you on episode 277 of Les Filles du Roi. Until then, au revoir.